Florida State has the biggest mismatch in the game when they take the field on Saturday against the Clemson Tigers, and it's something that has that staff and entire program absolutely worried to death. We're going to talk about the mismatch and how FSU plans to utilize it here in today's video. But listen, it's Friday. Many of you guys are on your way to Clemson right now. If you're not on your way to Clemson, you're watching that clock while you're at work, just waiting for it to count down because you know that your weekend gets started and then it really gets started when you wake up on Saturday morning. It's a noon kick. It's an early game. I don't necessarily buy into the fact that Clemson's going to be sleepwalking into this or that the crowd won't be into it. I think that place is going to be pretty amped and pretty juiced, ready to go for the Tigers and Seminoles at noon on Saturday. This is the game that we have all had circled. I know the LSU game was nice. I get it. That was one that meant a lot nationally for the Noles. But if you're honest with yourself, there has been a team that's bigger than LSU that you have wanted to beat for the last 8 seasons. And this is the one that we've all had circled and all had ready to go. I think Florida State comes into this game finally feeling like it's their turn. Even last year in Tallahassee, we threw a big tailgate, and we had a lot of people out at it. People asked me my thoughts, and I still didn't think FSU was there yet. I thought if they played well enough, they could compete, and they held their own for a while. But this is finally the year, and it's due to some of the talent that they have. But the biggest X factor in tomorrow's game is none other than Jaheem Bell. And he is the secret weapon. He's the X factor. He's the one that's probably going to make this thing go. We're showing you some highlights right now from my guy Jay over at Nole Highlights. You ought to be following him. You ought to be checking out his social media because he does a phenomenal job. But Jaheem Bell is ridiculous. And the things that he could potentially do on Saturday are ridiculous. You're going up against a secondary who is really good and who is very well equipped to go up against talented receivers. However, they don't have anyone in that secondary that can match up with what Jaheem Bell brings. He has been an absolute nightmare against all 3 teams that we've played this year. He's done things that are ridiculous. Mike Norvell and Florida State kind of got trolled for taking him and saying that, oh, he wasn't that good or he was a cast-off from South Carolina. And he's in 3 games proven everyone wrong. He can line up absolutely anywhere, and he is deadly from anywhere. The play against Boston College where Jordan Travis is rolling out to the left and he comes in motion as well was just spectacular. And it was designed so well by Mike Norvell, and it is unguardable. How many times has Bell already caught the ball for a 2 to 3 yard gain, made a guy miss, and then ran the rest of the way into the end zone? I believe it's happened at least twice. Running the ball out of the backfield, he's just as explosive and just as dangerous. And he's got that little bit of nasty, that little bit of mean to him, as you saw at the end of LSU game, where he's ready to run people flat over. Ira Schofel of warchant.com had a very good quote and a very good statement in a tweet today when he said South Carolina had lost 7 straight to Clemson and hadn't won in Death Valley in 10 years when Jaheem Bell and the Gamecocks won there last year. Florida State's in a similar position, Ira says. Florida State has lost 7 straight to Clemson and hasn't won in Death Valley in 10 years. It would be something if Bell could help FSU do the same. We told you going into the LSU game that the biggest matchup that we thought might be pretty pointed was what Jaheem Bell might be able to do against Harold Perkins and that LSU defense. I don't know that anyone on Clemson's defense has that same name power, that same star power, but they are very good. But as good as they are, I just don't think they can contain probably one of the best tight ends in the country. Jaheem Bell has 7 receptions this year for 125 yards. He's got 2 touchdowns through the air. He's got 5 receptions against Boston College. He had 2 big receptions against LSU. And don't forget that 4-yard touchdown rush that put the Noles up 28 against the Tigers, in which he absolutely sunned a Tigers defensive back on his way to 6 points. Now, what I think makes Jaheim so nasty in this is, again, he is a matchup nightmare. It is impossible to guard him. You probably need to shade 2 people to him, and if you do that, That leaves a lot of room for guys like Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, and others. Plus, you are dealing with the fact that nobody is as big and as fast as he is that might potentially line up against him. Prayers up for the Clemson linebackers that potentially get matched up against him on Saturday. That would be bad news if you're a Tigers fan. And honestly, I can't wait to see it happen there live and in person. The next place that I think Jaheem Bell absolutely shines in is his confidence and his swagger. It's on another level right now. And just the way that he carries himself, and you can see it after some of the big plays, after some of the big highlights, after some of the massive things that he's done for Florida State already, he just walks around different. Did you see him at the end of the LSU game saying, "Hey, we're back"? I think that Jaheem Bell brings a different level of confidence and swagger. He knows how good he is. He backs it up on the field, and then he's not afraid to let you know about it as well. The offensive firepower that Florida State has right now is ridiculous. And the matchups that they can create with guys like Jaheem Bell, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Kyle Morlock, and others on the outside are just dumb. It's really not fair. We talked about this in our preview, but Clemson is probably the most well-equipped to potentially slow some things down. I certainly don't think they can stop what the Noles want to do, but they may be the most well-equipped to slow things down. However, they are in for a living hell if Jaheem Bell, Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman, and Johnny Wilson are on their game. Or honestly, even if those guys are playing their B game, I don't know how anybody in the country, including Clemson, plans to stop them. I want to give some real quick love to our friends over at thegramco.com. Hey, we've made some upgrades. We've got some signage going on now in the studio. You can see the Hotbox studio here. Shout out Gramco. If you don't get the joke, you don't get the joke. But shout out thegramco.com. Make sure that you're supporting their Delta 8 products are phenomenal. They have some new Delta 9 as well that you guys should go check out. Thegramco.com, the absolute best when it comes to Delta 8, a leader in the industry, founded by Noles fans, vet-owned, thegramco.com. Hopefully, you'll see us out there with them at the tailgate on Saturday. So what ends up happening on Saturday with the Noles? Well, we're not going live this week because I'm going to be up in Clemson on Friday. So here's my little bit of a rant on the game and how I see it playing out and what ends up going down. This is going to get shared one way or another on Monday. I'm either going to be right or we're going to lose the game, and all the trolls and rivals will share it. And so I appreciate you guys for at least sharing our content. But I think this is a close game in the first quarter. I think that it's probably back and forth. I think that Clemson is going to script up some good stuff early. But I think as we get to halftime, it would not shock me at all if the Noles are up 2 scores at halftime. And you come out of that third quarter, and based on the result of that very first drive, whether it's a Clemson drive that doesn't avail points or it's a Florida State drive that does end up putting the game out of reach, Death Valley will be silent, and it will sound like a funeral, but not Florida State's. It will be Clemson's own funeral. That place will clear out, and I think the Noles win this thing going away. I think that the Noles will do a good job keying in on Clemson's run game. I don't think Klubnik is very good. I think he's been terrible against pressure, and I think that Adam Fuller very much, for all the questions around the defense, saw how good this defense can be when they're bringing pressure at the end of that Boston College game last week. I think they'll continue to do that this week. I think that they'll bring pressure from multiple angles. I think that the tackling will be better this week than it was against Clemson. I think the team is more healthy this week than they were against Boston College, and I think the Noles will roll in this one. Give me a final score of Florida State in the 40s, Clemson maybe 17 is maybe how I see that shaking out. I think the Noles win this thing going away. I think that they reestablish themselves as the premier team in this conference. They take back the crown from Clemson. We've got 2 different programs that are on opposite trajectories. Florida State finally overtakes the Tigers for the first time in 10 years since Jameis Winston was there on the sideline in Death Valley. 9 years since they've won overall, 10 years since they did it on the road. This is the year that they finally get revenge for the last 7 games played, but last 8 years of not being on Clemson's level. This is where we overtake them. We basically eliminate them from having a chance to go to Charlotte. We basically sign in our spot in the ACC championship with a win in this one. The Noles go back to Tallahassee, partying, celebrating, and having the time of their lives. Make sure you're following my guy Jay. It's Nole Highlights on Twitter. He does a phenomenal job. That Jaheem Bell video was all him. Appreciate him for letting me use that. Go check him out. He does a great job. He posted some highlights today that I think you guys will enjoy. Appreciate you guys for your love. If you missed Richie and I's full breakdown of the game, start to finish, we talked about it for 45 minutes. If you need something pregame or you need something here on this Friday to get you into the weekend, you can click right here to check it out.